3 days passed after the battle. The Starbound limped through space at half speed, its engines damaged, its hull scarred. But it was still flying. Thanks to Taiho, they were all still alive. The crew did not know how to act around him anymore. Before, they had ignored him. He was just the commander's strange human husband, the quiet cook who made food and stayed out of the way. Some had felt sorry for Yuna for marrying such a weak creature. Others had laughed behind his back, thought no one was laughing now. Yuna watched from her command chair as crew members walked past the kitchen door. They slowed down when they passed, stealing quick looks inside where Taiho was cooking as if nothing had happened. Their eyes were full of fear, wonder, and something that looked like worship. Captain Dory approached her chair and stood at attention. His face was troubled. "Commander, I must speak with you." "It is about him." Yuna nodded. "Speak freely. The crew's afraid. They have seen what he can do. Some of them want to leave the ship at the next station. Others are asking questions that I cannot answer." He paused. What do we tell them? It was a good question. Yuna had been asking herself the same thing for 3 days. "Tell them the truth," she said finally. "Tell them that Taiho is my husband, and he saved all of our lives. That is all they need to know. Commander, what he did. It should not be possible. No human has that kind of power. No one has that kind of power. I know." Dory leaned closer, his voice dropping to a whisper. "The rumors are already spreading. Other ships are talking. Word will reach the Valari High Command soon. They will want answers. They will want to study him." Yuna's eyes turned cold. "No one touches my husband. No one. Commander, be reasonable. The military will not just ignore this. They will want to understand how a human destroyed 30 Krath warships single-handedly. They will demand access to him. Then they will have to go through me." Dory looked like he wanted to argue more, but something in Yuna's expression stopped him. He bowed his head and walked away. Yuna stood up from her chair and walked to the kitchen. Taiho was alone inside, chopping vegetables with practiced hands. He looked up when she entered and smiled that warm, gentle smile she loved so much. "Hungry?" he asked. "I am making soup." She walked to him and wrapped her arms around him from behind, pressing her face against his back. "The crew is afraid of you," she said quietly. "I know. The military will come for you. I know that too. What are we going to do?" Taiho put down his knife and turned around to face her. He held her hands in his and looked into her silver eyes. "Yuna, there is something I did not tell you. Something important." "What?" "The Krath ships that escaped? They sent a message before they ran. I tried to stop it, but I was too slow. The message reached the Krath homeworld." Yuna felt ice spread through her body. "What kind of message?" "They told their emperor that a Black Division commander is still alive. They told him where I am. And now," Taiho's voice grew heavy, "now the entire Krath Empire is coming for me. Not just ships. The whole empire. They will throw everything they have at us. Why? Why do they want you so badly?" Taiho was quiet for a long moment. Then he walked to the window and looked out at the stars. During the war, the Black Division killed over 2 million Krath soldiers. We destroyed their greatest fleet. We killed 3 of their princes. We almost won. If we had just a little more time, a little more power, Earth would still be standing today." He turned back to face her, and his eyes were dark with old memories. "The Krath fear us. They fear what we represent. For 50 years, they have hunted every human with Black Division abilities. They thought they killed us all, but I survived. I hid. And now that they know I am alive, they will not stop until I am dead. Then we run," Yuna said firmly. "We go somewhere they cannot find us. The galaxy is big. We can hide. We can try, But Yuna, you need to understand something. He walked to her and took her hands again. The power I showed you, that was not my full strength. I held back. A lot. Held back? You destroyed 30 warships. I know. But if I had used everything I had, I would not have just destroyed those ships. I would have destroyed everything within 1,000 miles. The Starbound. Your crew. You. His voice cracked. I almost lost control. It has been so long since I fought. The power. It wants to be used. It wants to destroy. And every time I use it, it gets harder to stop. Yuna stared at him. She had always thought of Taiho as gentle, kind, harmless. Now she realized that she had been sleeping next to a weapon powerful enough to destroy worlds. Are you afraid of me now? He asked quietly. She looked at his face. The same face she had woken up next to for 3 years. The same face that smiled at her every morning. The same face she had fallen in love with. No, she said. I am not afraid of you. I am afraid of losing you. Relief flooded his eyes. He pulled her into his arms and held her tight. I do not deserve you, he whispered. Probably not, she said, and felt him laugh softly against her hair. The ship's alarm suddenly screamed to life. They both ran to the bridge. The crew was already at their stations, their faces pale with fear. Report. Yuna commanded. Hana turned to face her, and her voice was shaking. Commander, you need to see this. The main screen flickered to life. Space was filled with ships. Not 40 ships like before. Not even 100. There were thousands of them, stretching as far as the eye could see. Krath warships of every size, from small fighters to massive battle carriers the size of small moons. And in the center of the fleet, larger than all the others, was the Krath Imperial flagship. The personal ship of the Krath Emperor himself. Impossible, Captain Dury breathed. That is the entire Krath Imperial fleet. Every ship they have. Why would they send everything just for one human? Taiho stepped forward, his face calm. Because I am not just one human, he said quietly. I am the last thing standing between them and total victory. As long as I'm alive, they will never feel safe. They will never stop looking over their shoulders, wondering if there are more like me hiding in the shadows. He looked at Yuna with sad eyes. They are not here to capture me. They are here to make sure. To end the last threat to their empire once and for all. The communication screen crackled. A face appeared, and everyone on the bridge fell silent. It was the Krath Emperor himself. Old scarred, his yellow eyes burning with cold hatred. He looked at Taiho and smiled. So, the Emperor said, his voice like thunder, the last Black Division commander. I have waited 50 years for this moment. 50 years of hunting. 50 years of wondering if we truly killed you all. And now, here you are. Taiho met his gaze without flinching. Hello, old friend? You look terrible. The Emperor's smile disappeared. You killed my sons. You burned my fleet. You made me look weak in front of my entire empire. You destroyed my planet. You killed my family, my friends, everyone I ever loved. Taiho's voice was ice. Your sons died quickly. They were lucky. The Emperor laughed. You are surrounded by 10,000 ships, and you talk about luck? Look around you, human. Look at my fleet. What can you do against this? Nothing. You are nothing. Taiho was quiet for a moment. Then he smiled. It was not a nice smile. You want to know what I can do? He said softly. Let me show you. And the golden light began to rise again. The golden light was brighter than before. It rose from Taiho's body like a sun being born, filling the bridge with warmth and power that made everyone's skin tingle. The crew fell back, shielding their eyes, unable to look directly at him. But Yuna forced herself to watch. This was her husband. This was the man she loved. Whatever he was about to become, she would not look away. Taiho rose into the air, his feet left the floor, and he floated toward the main window as if gravity had forgotten about him. The golden symbols that surrounded him grew larger, more complex, spinning around him like a storm of light. Outside, the Krath Imperial fleet began to move. 10,000 ships turned their weapons toward the tiny Starbound, ready to fire enough power to destroy a planet. The Krath Emperor's voice echoed through the speakers. "All ships, prepare to fire on my command. Full power. Leave nothing behind. I want that human reduced to atoms." Yuna grabbed Taiho's arm. "Wait, there are too many. Even with your power, you cannot fight 10,000 ships." Taiho looked at her with glowing golden eyes. But even through that strange light, she could still see him in there. Still see the man who made her breakfast every morning. "I was not lying when I said I held back," he said softly. "I have been holding back for 50 years. Hiding, running, pretending to be weak. Because I knew that if I ever truly let go, if I ever used my full power, people would be afraid of me. I would become a monster. A weapon. Not a person." He touched her face gently, and his fingers left trails of golden light on her blue skin. "But you never treated me like a weapon, Yuna. You treated me like a person. Like someone worth loving. And that is why I am going to protect you. That is why I'm going to end this right here. Right now. Taiho. I love you, Yuna, no matter what happens next. Please remember that." He turned back to the window. The Krath Emperor screamed his command. Fire. 10,000 ships fired at once. The darkness of space turned white with energy. Beams of destruction flew toward the Starbound from every direction, each one powerful enough to destroy a city. Together, they could have destroyed a world. Taiho raised his hands, and the universe held its breath. The beams stopped. Not just paused like before. They stopped completely, frozen in space like lines of light drawn on a black canvas. Every single one of them. 10,000 beams from 10,000 ships. On the bridge of the Krath Imperial flagship, the Emperor screamed in fury. "Impossible! Nothing has that kind of power. Nothing." But Taiho was not done. He brought his hands together slowly, and the frozen beams began to move. They bent, they twisted. They turned around and pointed back at the ships that had fired them. And then Taiho spoke, and his voice echoed through space itself, reaching every ship, every crew member, every corner of the Krath fleet. 50 years ago, you burned my world. You killed my people. You thought you destroyed us forever." The golden light around him exploded outward, spreading like a wave across the battlefield. But humanity does not die so easily. We survive. We adapt. We overcome. That is who we are. That is what we are. The frozen beams began to vibrate, filled with power from Taiho's golden light. You wanted to see the true power of the Black Division? You wanted to know why your empire has lived in fear of us for 50 years. His voice dropped to a whisper that somehow echoed louder than any scream. Then watch. He opened his hands. The beams flew. Yuna would remember the next 10 seconds for the rest of her life. Ships exploded. Hundreds of them. Thousands. They burst into flames and shattered into pieces, their crews dying before they even knew what happened. The frozen beams cut through the Krath fleet like a scythe through wheat, destroying everything they touched. But that was not all. Taiho moved his hands again, and waves of golden light shot from his body. These waves passed through space and touched the remaining ships, and wherever they touched, systems failed. Engines stopped. Weapons went offline. Life support shut down. In 10 seconds. 5,000 Krath ships were destroyed. In 20 seconds. The remaining 5,000 were dead in space, drifting helplessly without power. the Krath Imperial fleet, the most powerful military force in the galaxy, was gone. Taiho lowered his hands. The golden light began to fade. On the screen, the Krath Emperor sat frozen on his throne, his yellow eyes wide with terror. His flagship was dark around him, its systems dead like all the others. "What? What are you?" he whispered. Taiho's voice was tired but steady. "I am Taiho Park, commander of the Black Division, last defender of Earth, and I am giving you a choice." Choice? Leave? Take your ships and go. Never threaten humanity again. Never attack another innocent world. If you do these things, I will let you live." The Emperor's terror slowly changed to rage. "You think you have won? You think this is over? I am the Krath Emperor. I rule half the galaxy. I will build a new fleet. I will come back with 100,000 ships. 1,000,000 ships. I will hunt you to the end of the universe." Taiho was quiet for a moment. Then he sighed. "I hoped you would say that." He raised one finger. A tiny beam of golden light shot from his fingertip. It crossed the distance between the Starbound and the Imperial flagship in less than a heartbeat. The Emperor had time to open his mouth. Then the beam hit, and the flagship exploded in a ball of fire that lit up the darkness of space. Silence fell. The remaining Krath ships, dark and powerless, floated like dead fish in the void. Their crews were alive but helpless, unable to do anything but watch as their emperor died. Taiho lowered his hand. "The war is over," he said quietly. "Go home. Tell your people what you saw today. Tell them that humanity is not weak. Tell them that we are still here." The golden light faded completely, and Taiho fell. Yuna caught him before he hit the floor. She held him in her arms, feeling his body shake with exhaustion. His face was pale, his breathing shallow, but he was alive. "You did it," she whispered, tears running down her blue cheeks. "You actually did it." Taiho smiled weakly. "I told you. I would protect you. You stupid, wonderful man. You almost killed yourself." "Worth it," he murmured. "You are worth it." The bridge crew stood in stunned silence. Captain Dury had tears in his eyes. Hannah was openly crying. Others had fallen to their knees, overwhelmed by what they had witnessed. One young officer, a Valari man who had always looked down on Taiho, stepped forward. He knelt before Yuna and her husband. "Commander," he said, his voice shaking, "I was wrong. We were all wrong. Humans are not weak. They never were." Yuna looked at him, then at the rest of her crew. "No," she said softly. "They are not." Days later, the Starbound limped into a Valari space station. News of what happened had already spread across the galaxy. The destruction of the Krath Imperial fleet by a single human was all anyone could talk about. Yuna stood on the observation deck, looking out at the stars. Taiho stood beside her, his hand in hers. He was still recovering, still tired, but the color had returned to his face. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now," Taiho said, "the galaxy knows the truth. Humanity is not finished. We are still here. And maybe, just maybe, other humans will stop hiding. Maybe they will stand up. Maybe they will remember what we once were. And you? What will you do?" Taiho turned to look at her. His eyes were warm again, gentle again, full of the love that had made her fall for him in the first place. "I was hoping," he said softly, "that I could go back to being your cook. If you will still have me." Yuna laughed through her tears. "You destroyed 10,000 ships, killed an emperor, and saved the entire crew. And you want to go back to making breakfast? What can I say? I like cooking." She shook her head and pulled him into a kiss. "You are impossible," she whispered against his lips. "But you love me anyway." "Yes," she admitted. "I do." They stood together, watching the stars. Behind them, A crew that had learned to respect their human cook. Ahead of them, a galaxy that would never look at humanity the same way again. The war was over. The Krath Empire was broken. And for the first time in 50 years, humans across the galaxy began to hope again. All because of a quiet cook who had learned to love again. All because an alien commander had seen the person behind the power. And that, in the end, was the truth the galaxy had forgotten. Humans were never weak. They were simply waiting for something worth fighting for. The bridge fell completely silent. Everyone stared at Taiho as he stood before the main window, his hands raised toward the fleet of Krath ships. From behind, he looked small and fragile, just a simple human man facing 40 warships armed with enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Yuna's heart was breaking. Her husband was going to die right in front of her eyes, and there was nothing she could do to stop it. "Taiho, please," she begged, her voice cracking. "Come back. We can hide together. We can die together. Please, do not do this." But Taiho did not move. He did not turn around. Instead, he spoke. And his voice was different now. It was deeper, stronger, filled with an authority that Yuna had never heard before. "This is Commander Taiho Park," he said clearly, his words echoing through the bridge. "Black Division, Earth Coalition. Service number 7-7-4-2. Authorization code, Fallen Star." The crew members looked at each other in confusion. What was he talking about? The Earth Coalition? That government had been destroyed 50 years ago when the Krath burned Earth. There was no Earth Coalition anymore. There was nothing left. But Taiho continued. "To all Krath vessels in range. You have 10 seconds to power down your weapons and surrender. If you do not, you will be destroyed. This is your final warning." Outside the window, the Krath ships did nothing. Their weapons still glowed red, still pointed at the starborn dot, and then War Chief Bora's voice came through the communication system, laughing. "Earth Coalition? Black Division? There is no such thing anymore, human. Your people are dead. Your planet is dust. You have nothing. You are nothing. And now you will die like the rest of your worthless race." A pause. All ships, fire. Yuna screamed. 40 ships fired at once. The space outside the window turned white with energy beams, each one powerful enough to cut through their shields like paper. But they never hit. Something happened that no one on the bridge could explain. One moment, the beams were flying toward them. The next moment, they simply stopped. They hung in space, frozen as if time itself had paused. Dot and Taiho, still standing with his hands raised, began to glow. Dot, it started small, just a faint light around his body. But it grew quickly, becoming brighter and brighter until it hurt to look at him. The light was golden, warm, and impossibly powerful. Dot, Captain Dory fell to his knees. "What? What is happening?" Yuna could not answer. She could not speak. She could only watch as the man she had married, the quiet cook who made her breakfast every morning, transformed into something else entirely. The frozen energy beams began to move again. But they did not fly toward the starburn. Instead, they turned around. They flew back toward the Krath ships. Explosions lit up the darkness of space. 1 ship. 5 ships. 10 ships. They burst into flames and broke apart, their crews dying in seconds. The Krath had no time to react, no time to understand what was happening. Their own weapons had been turned against them. "Impossible," someone whispered behind Yuna. "This is impossible." But it was real. It was happening right in front of their eyes. Taiho lowered his hand slightly, and the golden light around him grew even stronger. Now Yuna could see patterns in the light, complex symbols and shapes that seemed to float around him like living things. And then he moved. His fingers danced across the air, touching controls that were not there, pressing buttons that did not exist. But somehow, impossibly, the Starboard responded. Systems that had been offline came back to life. Weapons that had been damaged repaired themselves. The ship shuddered as power flooded through its systems. "All crew, hold on to something," Tai-Ho said calmly. The Starboard moved. It was not the slow, careful movement of a normal ship. It was fast, incredibly fast, faster than any ship Yuna had ever seen. The Starboard danced between the craft vessels like a living thing, dodging their fire, spinning through their formations. And as it moved, Tai-Ho kept attacking. Golden light shot from the ship's weapons, but it was not normal weapon fire. It was something else, something that passed through shields like they were not there, something that tore through armor like paper. More craft ships exploded. 20 now. 25, 30. War, Chief Bora's voice screamed through the communication system. "What are you? What are you doing? Stop. Stop this now." Tai-Ho finally spoke, and his voice was cold as ice. 50 years ago, your empire came to Earth. You killed 8 billion people. You burned cities. You poisoned oceans. You hunted children through the streets like animals. Another ship exploded. The galaxy thought you destroyed us. The galaxy thought humans were finished, weak, helpless, a dying race. Another explosion. And another. But we are still here. We have always been here, watching, waiting. And now you will understand the truth that the galaxy has forgotten. Tai-Ho turned his head slightly, and for just a moment, Yuna could see his profile. His face was hard, his eyes burning with golden light. Humans are not weak. We never were. The last 10 craft ships tried to run. They turned their engines to full power and fled in different directions, desperate to escape. But there was no escape. Tai-Ho raised his hand one final time, and golden light exploded from his palm. In seconds, it was over. 30 ships destroyed. The remaining 10 were running for their lives, their engines screaming as they pushed for maximum speed. Tai-Ho lowered his hand. The golden light around him began to fade. His body swayed, and suddenly he looked tired, so tired. Tai-Ho! Yuna ran forward and caught him just as his knees gave out. She held him in her arms, supporting his weight, feeling his body shake from exhaustion. "I am okay," he whispered. "Just tired. It has been a long time since I used that much power." "What? What are you?" Yuna asked, her voice trembling. "What just happened?" Tai-Ho looked up at her with his normal eyes, brown and warm and gentle, the eyes of the man she loved. "I am sorry I lied to you," he said softly. "I never wanted you to see that side of me. I just wanted to be normal. I just wanted to be your husband." Behind them, the crew was still frozen in shock. Captain Dury stood with his mouth hanging open. Hana was crying silently. Others had fallen to their knees, unable to understand what they had just witnessed. Yuna helped Tai-Ho to her command chair and sat him down carefully. Then she knelt in front of him and took his hands in hers. "Tell me everything," she said firmly. "No more secrets. No more lies. Tell me who you really are." Tai-Ho closed his eyes for a long moment. When he opened them again, they were full of old sadness. "I am what is left of Earth's last defense," he said quietly. "I am one of the Black Division commanders. We were created to protect humanity, to be our final weapon against the darkness. There were only 12 of us, and as far as I know, I am the last one still alive." He laughed softly, but there was no humor in it. "I have been running for 50 years, Yuna, hiding, pretending to be normal. Because every time I use my power, the craft can track me. Every time I fight, more of them come. I thought if I stayed quiet, if I stayed hidden, they would eventually give up." He looked at her with eyes full of pain. "But I could not let them hurt you. I could not let them take you from me. So now they know. Now the entire Krath Empire knows that a Black Division commander is still alive. He reached up and touched her face gently. And they will never stop coming for me. Never. Outside the window, the stars were quiet. The Krath ships were gone, destroyed or fled. For now, they were safe. But Yuna knew that this was just the beginning. The universe had changed. Everything had changed, and nothing would ever be the same again. The alarm started screaming at exactly 3 hours past midnight. Yuna jumped out of bed, her body moving before her mind was fully awake. Years of military training had made her reflexes sharp as a blade. She was already pulling on her uniform when the door slid open and Captain Dury ran in. "Commander!" His face was pale with fear. "We have a problem. Report." "Krath ships." They appeared out of nowhere. Our sensors did not detect them until they were right on top of us. Yuna's blood went cold. "How many?" Dury swallowed hard. 40. For a moment, Yuna could not speak. 40 Krath warships against her single vessel. It was not a battle. It was an execution. She ran to the bridge, Dury close behind her. The hallways were full of panicking crew members, their faces showing the same fear she felt in her own heart. But she kept her expression calm. A commander must never show weakness. The bridge was chaos when she arrived. Officers shouted at each other. Screens flashed with warning lights. And through the main window, she could see them, 40 Krath ships. They surrounded the Starbound like wolves around a wounded animal. Their black hulls blocked out the stars, and their weapons glowed red with power, ready to fire. "Commander on deck!" Someone shouted. The noise stopped. Every eye turned to Yuna. She walked to her command chair and sat down, forcing her hands to stay steady. Status report. The weapons officer, a young Valari woman named Hana, spoke first. "They have locked weapons on us, Commander. All 40 ships. If they fire together, our shields will last maybe 3 seconds. Can we run?" "No, Commander. They have blocked all escape routes. Their ships are faster than ours. Can we fight?" Hana's voice broke. "Commander, we would not survive the first minute." Silence fell over the bridge. Yuna could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. This was it. After 20 years of service, countless battles, hundreds of victories, she was going to die here. Not in a great battle, not protecting something important, but in a simple ambush on a routine mission. The communication screen crackled to life. A face appeared, and Yuna felt hatred burn in her chest. It was a Krath commander. His gray skin was covered in ritual scars, and his yellow eyes gleamed with cruel pleasure. The Krath were a warrior race, brutal and merciless. They had conquered half the galaxy through blood and fire. They had destroyed Earth and hunted humans across the stars like animals. "Valari, Commander," the Krath said, his voice like gravel. "I am War Chief Bora of the Krath Empire. You have entered our territory without permission. This is a crime punishable by death." Yuna stood up and faced the screen. "We are on a peaceful mission. We mean no harm to the Krath Empire." Laura laughed. It was an ugly sound. "Peaceful? You Valari are all the same. Always talking about peace while you hide behind your fancy ships and fancy technology. But today, there is no escape. Today, you die. At least let my crew go. I will surrender myself. Take me as your prisoner." "Prisoner?" Bora's eyes narrowed. "I do not want prisoners. I want blood. I want to watch your ship burn. I want to hear your crew scream as they die. That is what the Krath want." He leaned closer to the screen, his scarred face filling the image. "But first, I want information. My scouts tell me you have a human on your ship. Is this true?" Yuna's heart stopped How did they know about Taiho? I do not know what you are talking about, she said, keeping her voice steady. Do not lie to me. Bora slammed his fist against something off-screen. We have been tracking this human for a long time. He thinks he can hide among the Volari, but we found him. Now, give him to us, and maybe I will kill your crew quickly instead of slowly. Yuna's mind raced. Why would the Krath want Taiho? He was just a cook. What could possibly be special about him? I will never hand over any member of my crew, she said firmly. If you want him, you will have to come and take him. Mara smiled, showing his sharp teeth. Very well. We will do exactly that. Prepare to die, Volari. The screen went dark. For a moment, no one moved. Then Captain Dury spoke, his voice hollow. Commander, what do we do? Yuna looked around the bridge at her crew. These were her people. She had trained them, fought with them, laughed and cried with them. They were her family, and in a few minutes, they would all be dead. We fight, she said quietly. We fight until the end. That is all we can do. She turned to the weapons officer. Hannah, prepare all weapons. Target the nearest ship. If we are going to die, we will take at least one of them with us. Yes, Commander. Yuna sat back in her chair and closed her eyes. She thought of her home world, of her parents who died in the war, of the life she had lived. And she thought of Taiho. She had not even said goodbye to him. The bridge door slid open. Everyone turned to look. Taiho walked in, but something was different. Something had changed. He was still wearing his simple white shirt and dark pants. His hair was still messy. But his eyes were not the same. Gone was the warmth. Gone was the gentleness. In their place was something cold and hard and ancient, like the eyes of a predator that had been sleeping for a long time and had finally woken up. He walked past the shocked crew members without looking at them. His steps were slow and steady, each one filled with a purpose that Yuna did not understand. Taiho? She said, standing up from her chair. What are you doing here? It is dangerous. You should go back to the kitchen and hide. He stopped in front of her. For a long moment, he just looked at her face, as if he was memorizing every detail. Then he smiled. But it was not his usual warm smile. It was a sad smile, full of old pain and older memories. I am sorry, Yuna, he said softly. I wanted to keep this secret forever. I wanted to just be your cook, your husband, nothing more. But I cannot let them hurt you. I cannot let them hurt any of you. He reached out and touched her cheek gently. Please forgive me for what you are about to see. Then he turned and walked toward the communication panel. Taiho, wait. But he did not wait. He pressed a button, and the craft commander's face appeared on the screen again. Bora looked surprised. What is this? A human? You dare to let a human speak to me? Taiho's voice was calm and cold. War Chief Bora, this is your only warning. Take your ships and leave. Now. For a second, there was silence. Then Bora burst into laughter. A warning? From a human? Do you know who I am? I have killed thousands of your kind. I burned your planet. I watched your children die. And you dare to warn me? Taiho did not react to the words. He simply stood there, waiting. Very well, human. If you want to die first, I will grant your wish. All ships, prepare to fire. Target the bridge. Let us see how brave this human is when he is burning. The screen went dark again. Through the window, Yuna could see the Krath ships powering up their weapons. In seconds, they would fire. In seconds, everyone on this bridge would be dead. She grabbed Taiho's arm. What are you doing? We have to run. We have to hide. Taiho turned to look at her one last time. Stay behind me, he said. No matter what happens, stay behind me. And then he stepped forward, faced the window, and raised his hands. The ship was quiet in the early hours of the morning cycle. Yuna walked through the empty hallways, her blue skin catching the soft light from the walls. She was tall, even for a Valari woman, and her silver eyes missed nothing. As commander of the warship Starbound, she had earned respect through years of battle and sacrifice. But today, she was not thinking about war. She was thinking about breakfast. The smell of cooking food reached her nose before she reached the kitchen. It was a warm smell, full of spices she had never known before meeting him. Earth spices, he called them. Strange names like pepper and garlic and something called ginger. She stopped at the kitchen door and watched Taeho stood at the cooking station, his back to her. He was not a tall man by human standards, and next to her Valari crew, he looked almost small. His black hair was messy from sleep, and he wore a simple white shirt and dark pants. Nothing special. Nothing that would make anyone look twice. He hummed a song while he cooked. It was a human song, something soft and slow. Yuna did not know the words, but she had grown to love the sound of it over the past 3 years. 3 years. Had it really been that long? She remembered the day they met. Her ship had answered a distress call from a small human transport vessel. Pirates had attacked it, killed most of the crew. When her soldiers searched the wreckage, they found only one survivor hiding in a storage room. Taeho. He had been so calm. That was what she remembered most. The other survivors she had rescued over the years always cried or screamed or begged. But Taeho had simply looked at her with tired eyes and said, "Thank you for coming." Something about those words had touched her heart. In the months that followed, she learned more about him. He had been a cook on the transport ship, nothing more. He had no family waiting for him, no home to return to. Earth had been destroyed by the Krath Empire 50 years ago, and humans now lived scattered across the galaxy, always running, always hiding. Yuna had offered him a job in her kitchen. He had accepted, and then, slowly, without either of them planning it, something had grown between them. Quiet conversations in the night. Small smiles across crowded rooms. A touch that lasted a little too long. When Yuna asked him to marry her, the whole ship had been shocked. A Valari commander marrying a human? It was unheard of. Humans were considered the weakest species in the known galaxy. They had no special powers, no advanced technology, no great empires. They were refugees, survivors of a dead world. Her second in command, a stern Valari man named Captain Dury, had tried to talk her out of it. "Commander," he had said, his voice full of concern, "think about what you are doing. The crew will lose respect for you. The other commanders will laugh. A human? They are barely more than animals." Yuna had looked at him with cold eyes. "I did not ask for your opinion, Captain. I asked for your blessing." Dury had given it reluctantly, but she knew he still did not understand. Neither did most of her crew. Even now, 3 years later, she could feel their confusion when they looked at Taeho. Why him? What did she see in this quiet, ordinary human man? Taeho turned around and saw her standing in the doorway. His face lit up with a warm smile. "Good morning," he said. "You are early today." Yuna walked into the kitchen and sat down at the small table. "I could not sleep? Bad dreams?" "No, just thinking." Taeho nodded and placed a plate of food in front of her. It was a human dish, something called eggs with vegetables and meat. She had never eaten such things before meeting him, but now she could not imagine starting her day without them. "The crew is worried," she said between bites. "We are entering the border zone tomorrow. Krath territory." Taeho's hands paused for just a moment as he cleaned the cooking station. Then he continued as if nothing had happened. "The Krath," he said quietly. "They are the ones who destroyed Earth?" "Yes, I see." Yuna watched him carefully. In 3 years of marriage, she had learned to read his face. Most people thought Taiho had no emotions, that he was always calm and peaceful. But Yuna knew better. She could see the small changes in his eyes, the tiny movements of his lips. Right now, something dark passed across his face. It was there for only a second, and then it was gone, replaced by his usual gentle smile. "Do not worry about me," he said. "I will be fine. I am just a cook, remember. I will stay in the kitchen, where it is safe." Yuna smiled, but something in her chest felt heavy. She had always wondered about Taiho's past. He never talked about his life before the transport ship. Whenever she asked, he would change the subject or make a joke. What was he hiding? She had tried to search for information about him in the galactic databases, but there was nothing. No records, no history, no evidence that a man named Taiho had ever existed before that day on the transport ship. Thought it was like he had appeared from nowhere. "Yuna," she looked up. Taiho was standing next to her, his hand on her shoulder. His touch was warm and gentle, like always. "Everything will be okay," he said. "I promise." She wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust that everything would be fine, that they would pass through craft space without trouble, that her crew would stay safe. But deep in her heart, she felt that something was coming. Something big. Something that would change everything. She just did not know what. That night, Yuna lay in bed next to Taiho, listening to his quiet breathing. He was already asleep, his face peaceful in the dim light. She reached out and touched his cheek softly. "Who are you really?" she thought. "What secrets are you keeping from me?" But the only answer was silence. Outside the window, the stars moved slowly past as the Starburn flew deeper into dangerous space. Tomorrow, they would enter Krath territory. Tomorrow, everything would change. But for now, in this quiet moment, Yuna closed her eyes and tried to sleep. She did not know that in just a few hours, she would finally learn the truth about the man she had married. And nothing would ever be the same again.